Hello everyone, welcome to the Integrating Emerging Technology in the Classroom webinar. It is just 11 o'clock and we can see that we have a number of folks who have joined us, so welcome. We imagine a few more will be joining us in just a couple minutes. So we're going to start a little slow to give individuals a chance to sign in, log in with, for a number of folks, probably new technology, including us. So first of all, we would like to say thank you to the AALS Clinical Sections Committee on Teaching Methodologies. My name is Alyson Carrel, and I'm a Clinical Assistant Professor of Law, as well as the Assistant Director for the Center on Negotiation and Mediation at Northwestern University School of Law.
I'm Kara Young. I'm the Digital Services and Emerging Technologies Librarian here at Northwestern.
So throughout this webinar, we're going to try to point you to some of the technologies that we use in the classroom, but we're going to start by sharing with you a little bit about how to use this webinar. We're just going to wait another minute to make sure that folks have had a chance to log in. So bear with us for just a little bit of silence. I noticed that we have asked folks if they can hear us, and thank you for typing in your responses, letting us know that the sound is working. All right. Again, thank you for joining us. My name is Alyson Carrel, the Northwestern Center on Negotiation and Mediation.
I am Kara Young, Digital Services and Emerging Technologies at the Pritzker Library here. All right, folks, so we want to get you set up so you can participate in this webinar today. So you should see a control panel on the right side of your screen with all of your controls. One thing that you might notice is a red arrow at the top. The red arrow allows you to hide or show the toolbar. You can just click on that if you want to minimize it. We do want to encourage you to use the chat box, which is at the bottom of your toolbar, to ask any questions, because we're going to be muting all attendees.
All right, you'll also notice that there is a poll function on your control bar, but we're not going to actually use that function today because we'd like to use this as an opportunity to tell you and demonstrate to you other polling technology that you can use in your classroom without having to rely on this particular webinar technology or even clicker technology. And that's where we're going to start. Using technology called Poll Everywhere, we're going to start with a brief quiz for all of our participants. To participate in this Poll Everywhere, you're going to pull out your cell phone and text the message Legal Ed Tech to the number 37607. So just type in the number 37607 and text the message Legal Ed Tech. You should get a response from Poll Everywhere that says you have joined Kara Young's session, Legal Ed Tech. You're going to use this number to text responses in our poll. I'll just repeat that one more time and then we'll start our poll. You'll pull out your cell phone, text to the number 37607, text the message Legal Ed Tech, all one word, no spaces, and you should receive a response from Poll Everywhere that says you've joined Kara Young's session Legal Ed Tech. Now that you're signed in to Poll Everywhere, there we are, this is our poll. We'd like to start by asking if you have a ban on laptops in the classroom. If you do, simply type A and hit send. If you do not have a ban on laptops in the classroom, hit B and hit send. You can see our responses coming in, and it seems like overwhelmingly there is no ban on, most people do not have a ban on laptops in the classroom. Let's ask a little bit different question. Do you think laptop use in the classroom is distracting to students? Again, type A and hit send if you think they are distracting, or B if you do not think that they are distracting. You can see on your screen that the vast majority of individuals do think laptop use in the classroom is pretty darn distracting to students. And let's ask a slightly different question. Do you think laptop use in the classroom distracts you, the professor? Again, A, if you do think it distracts you, the professor. B, if it does not. A little bit different results, a little bit more even mixed, but still majority of folks say that yes, laptop use in the classroom does distract you, the professor. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your comfort level with technology in the classroom. If you don't mind sharing with us how you would characterize your general integration of technology in the classroom. Is it pretty low tech, or do you feel like you're an expert in this? You'll text A for low, B moderate, C high, or D expert. And if you don't use technology in the classroom at all, you can say E. Sorry? All right. So I see that people are sending in their results. I can see that down here on the bottom right, but I'm noticing that we're not seeing the results on our screen. Our first technology glitch. We expect that this will happen a little bit in today's webinar, and we hope that it demonstrates to you that although we might be trying new things, not everything works perfectly, but we can work around it. So let's see if I hit this. All right, now we've got some responses. Good. So that was an easy fix. It looks like for most folks, they're somewhere in the low to moderate to high. Very few feel like you're an expert in integrating technology into the classroom. So what words come to mind when you think about integrating technology into the classroom? And for this one, you just text a word or a short phrase, and that will come up here. So how do you feel? What comes to mind when you think about integrating text into the classroom? And again, your responses will be shown on the screen, but they continue to be anonymous. So far, we have fun, engagement, a lot to juggle. Oh, okay, so this is a word cloud, so you can see the word fun is a little bit larger than others, which means more folks are using that word. Preparation, learning, active fun, those are a little bit larger. We've got stimulating, resources. But we've also got anxious. We've got it's work, takes time, a little bit scary, concerned that it might be time consuming. Great. So a lot of different feelings about integrating technology into the classroom. We hope that in today's webinar, we can help you all see some benefits of integrating technology into the classroom, some easy ways of integrating technology into the classroom, and that we'll all end up somewhere in here that it's fun, it enhances learning, and can create active engagement with your students. Now, typically when we think of laptops in the classroom, we're a little concerned that students might be distracted by all the shiny things. We're afraid that they won't be focused on the substantive material we're teaching. So a lot of faculty do ban laptops in the classroom. Some schools create internet-free zones, actually blocking the internet in their classroom so students cannot access the web and be tempted by Facebook and email or shopping and other non-class related distractions. And we know that research shows that laptops actually are not good note-taking machines. So even if students are focused on the substantive material and taking notes on their laptops, it may not be beneficial. Just this last year, we had research that showed that students who take notes on their laptops tend to transcribe those lectures verbatim instead of analyzing and assessing the information to determine what to write down and what not to write down. Research showed that this transcription actually led to lower test scores instead of higher. So you might think, well, hang on a second. If that's what the research shows, then why would we even want to recommend integrating more technology into the classroom, because laptops are more than note-taking machines. Technology is more than laptops. They are portals to information, platforms for collaboration, and feedback tools. Technology has so much potential if we can design its integration effectively. So can we bring technology into the classroom? Yes, we can do this. We can do it in a pedagogically appropriate way, and even in ways that enhance student learning.
All right, so yes, we can use technology, and we can use it in a way that's meaningful and that encourages the critical thinking skills that students need. Tech empowers students to prepare for real-world scenarios, engage with course content, and create their own content, among other things. And we're going to walk you through each of these items. So how about real-world scenarios for why students need technology skills? Something that made news about a year and a half ago was the Kia Tech audit created by Casey Flaherty. Flaherty was corporate counsel for Kia Motors America. He was getting frustrated that outside counsel were wasting time and money because of inefficient tech skills. So he devised what he calls a legal tech audit to test associates at outside firms on some basic tech functions. He says most associates have failed to measure up to his expectations of what lawyers should be able to do, and that lack of tech awareness is a major challenge for the legal profession. Another note on the test, it's primarily comprised of performing basic tasks with common software programs. However, Flaherty also emphasizes that the tasks are less important than the skills behind the task performance. He could just as easily test associates on any of the routine tasks that lawyers use computers to undertake. So if students aren't mastering basic technology applications, it will be harder for them to adjust to the changing landscape of legal technology. These are examples of software programs that new attorneys might be tasked to master in the workplace, and many more are on the horizon.
So on this slide, we've got Clio, which is a practice management software that many clinics I know are talking about on the listserv about utilizing. KM Standards, which is a contract drafting program, and NCASE, a way to engage with e-discovery and better manage e-discovery requests. These are just some examples of how technology is impacting current legal practice today.
Okay, so I've talked a lot about why students need to learn technology, but it's important for me to also emphasize and reinforce the idea that learning specific technology is not the point, because technology changes. In fact, it can sometimes seem that the moment you finally master a process is the moment that the technology behind it changes again. What we are going for is adaptation, not focusing on mastering specific tools with students, but specific transferable skills. This skill set is known as information or technology fluency. This is the process of being able to seek out, evaluate, and properly make use of tools to solve problems efficiently, regardless of format or platform. This skill set has particular relevancy with regard to a recent ABA model rule update that encourages lawyers to keep technology skills current and to remain aware of changes in technology that affect their practice. Our second reason for using technology is to help students engage meaningfully with course content. But how can we do this? Integrating technology in the classroom doesn't start with technology. As I've said, that's not the point. It starts with identifying learning goals and determining what mastery of content looks like. One framework that is useful in identifying learning outcomes is Bloom's taxonomy. This is a classification of levels of learning that was first introduced in 1956. During the 90s, it was revised and updated with verbs, and that's the example that I'm showing you here. Moving from bottom to the top represents increasing cognitive complexity, upon which we can also layer a technology dimension. So I'm going to talk about the technology dimension now. How can we actually make Bloom's taxonomy relevant to our use of technology? Bloom's digital taxonomy, a further adaptation of Bloom's that attempts to account for technology skill integration. This chart maps verbs associated with each level to corresponding digital activities. For much more on this, I would encourage you to visit the URL here on the slide, or you can just Google Bloom's digital taxonomy. So in Bloom's Revised and Bloom's digital taxonomy, the ultimate expression of learning is creation, because it represents the highest order thinking skill and relies upon synthesis of all lower order skills. It represents the highest level of engagement, and we know that students learn more when they are highly engaged in their learning process. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of letting learning outcomes drive our technology integration. We've developed an assignment that integrates the technology in a meaningful way. But how do we actually measure how successful students have been in meeting the outcomes, which is what's most important? That's where rubrics can be very helpful for assessment. Rubrics are multidimensional and help us measure how well students met the content standards as well as the quality of the overall product. So not just technology for technology's sake, actual measuring impact on learning.
So we're going to use some examples that I used in my mediation and negotiation courses that when I started to finalize my syllabus, I met with Kara to hear a little bit about some different uses of technology. I shared with her specific learning outcomes, learning objectives for my students, and she helped me design ways to integrate technology to ensure that these students could meet those learning objectives in a more engaging way, and that would also allow them to create. So here's the first example. Students in my mediation class were learning about the mediation process, the skills necessary to effectively be a third party mediating a dispute, and defining when and how a party and/or her attorney can best utilize the mediation process. I wanted to test my students' understanding of the material, especially how to help someone figure out when mediation might be a beneficial process compared to litigation or some other process. Now, that assessment of the students' understanding could take many forms. I could ask them to write a research paper on the appropriate uses of mediation, but I wanted to test more than their understanding of the material. I wanted to test their ability to explain the process to a client or a potential client. So instead of a paper, I wanted to have them create a user guide, something that would be appropriate for the public. Pictured here is a PDF of a guide that the American Bar Association section on dispute resolution published. It is meant for attorneys to provide to their clients as well as mediators to provide to attorneys. This is very typical. It's got a very nice, pretty format, so they clearly had hired someone to do some graphic design to make it look nice, but it's very text heavy. I asked students to use technology to create a user guide that would be more engaging and likely to be viewed by potential users of mediation. So here's a couple examples of what I had students do. This is a video that students created to describe mediation in the domestic relations area. I'm going to play just a couple minutes of this video.
If you're dealing with a divorce, you probably have many issues and decisions you need to discuss with the other party. But doing so may prove to be difficult in a time of high hurt, confusion, and anger. Divorce mediation may assist you with that. Divorce mediation is a process where a neutral third party facilitates conversations between the parties so that they may come to a fair outcome both can accept. The process is confidential and 100% voluntary. Both parties do not have to agree that divorce is best in order to use mediation. And divorce mediation can also occur at any stage in the divorce, even after dissolution of the marriage, if there are loose ends that have not yet been addressed by the court.
Okay. So this is an example of how students used a video to describe the use of mediation and its appropriate use for a potential client. In this video, students not only use narrative to describe mediation, but visual enhancements to support the narrative and written text. It's a pretty stunning video that demonstrates to me, in its format and content, that the students fully understood the tenets of mediation and how it could be appropriately used in the domestic relations context. So again, they not only met the learning outcomes, but they used an appropriate format, a video with these visuals, these drawings, to engage a potential user. Here is another example of a presentation describing mediation. This one was designed for pro se litigants trying to navigate the court system and mediation program in a foreclosure case.
Have you received a foreclosure notice in Cook County? Mediation can help. So what is mediation? Mediation is a way of resolving disputes without a judge. A neutral third party, the mediator, helps the sides in dispute discuss their situation and maybe come to an agreement that's good for both parties. The mediator is not a judge and doesn't make a final decision on the issue. She or he merely helps the sides talk to each other. How can mediation help you? Mediation gives you an opportunity to explain your situation. It sets up a specific time where the bank is required to talk to you, and you may learn about options that you didn't know you had. In some cases, mediation can result in an agreement that will let you keep your home. Even if the foreclosure goes forward, mediation can help you understand the process and make it easier for you to navigate. Finally, foreclosure mediation in Cook County is paid for by the state, so you can do it for free.
Okay, so this is an example of a Prezi. It looks like by one of the questions that maybe the sound from that particular presentation did not come through. And I apologize about that. You can see, however, from this presentation that the students designed a Prezi that walks a pro se litigant step by step through what mediation is, how mediation can help, and how they get to a mediation as they go through this path for a pro se litigant. The reason why I liked this one and wanted to demonstrate it is that the content clearly, again, demonstrated to me that the students fully understood the substantive material, and the format they chose demonstrated that they additionally understood how a pro se party needed to be guided down the path of their case step by step, given the unique difficulties they might face in the foreclosure area. In both of these examples, students not only demonstrated a mastery of the substance of the information, but created content using a new technology, increasing their familiarity with technology and ability to learn new technology, and mastering the substantive information. A third example is a mediation guide where students used Twitter to tweet out to the public about the use of mediation. Instead of creating all the content and then publishing it, they created a concept and then slowly rolled it out over time, interacting and reacting to others about mediation through the use of Twitter. In this example, students can post tweets, which are messages limited to 140 characters or less, about mediation and posted them on Twitter. They tweeted at other users and engaged them in a discussion about mediation. Again, this demonstrated an understanding of the material, but forced the students to describe concepts succinctly and engage others in a way that created dialogue in a pretty creative way. I thought this project not only demonstrated their understanding of the material, but encouraged students to think about how and when to use social media in a professional manner. As more and more students use social media to talk about cases or create a name for themselves, students have got to learn what is appropriate and what is not. In each of the three examples that I've shown to you, I tried to have the students not only meet the learning objectives of the substantive material in mediation, but to actively use technology to create content so that I could see how well they were able to assess and analyze and express these concepts to others. Now, you don't always have to have projects or presentations as a way to use technology and engage your students. You can use technology in other ways to enhance your classroom management, better engage students, or even for formative assessments. Here's an example of how I use Google Forms in my negotiation class. In my negotiation class, I have students conducting in-class simulations. After the simulation, I hold a large class discussion about the simulation and how the readings from that week informed their strategies. I noticed a couple things when I would do this. I had a hard time calling on each of the 24 students in the class. I was concerned I didn't have an accurate gauge of their understanding simply by hearing from a select few students. I also have a larger international student base, and for some students, it's intimidating for them to speak. So I started having students do quick writes or self-reflections about their experience. These Google Forms, by using Google Forms, I was able to collect the information that the students shared in their quick writes very easily. Students return from the simulation, log into Google, and complete the form I'm showing you here. They share their thoughts electronically. This is just an example of what the students see on their screens. Now, when students hit submit, all of their comments go into a spreadsheet that I'm able to review. I am the only person who's able to access these, so their comments are anonymous to or confidential to their peers. I gain a better sense of their understanding of the readings and how well they did or did not apply the reading to the exercise. The way I use this spreadsheet, again, the students' comments are confidential to their peers and others are not able to access it. But it's something I'm able to review so that it can inform my debrief. You could set it up in any way. You can set it up so the students can view this or so that you know who wrote what. But the way I did it, it was confidential. A side benefit I found from using Google Forms is that it's enhanced my classroom management. Students complete their simulations in class, are asked to return at a specific time, but inevitably some students finish early. And when they return, they used to just goof around, surf the internet, talk, do unrelated work. But by having them come in and start filling out this Google form immediately, I feel like they remain engaged with the material instead of being in just downtime. Another example of engaging students through technology that doesn't require you to have a project is GoSoapbox.com. GoSoapbox.com is a website that allows students to submit comments and questions in real time on a shared site that classmates can see and respond to. I use this when conducting live mediation demonstrations, show longer videos, or conduct fish bowls, where observers are asked to take notes on what they see. Now, traditionally, this is done on one's own piece of paper. Students are asked to observe, write their thoughts down, and then we'll talk about it after the completion of the video or the demonstration. The problem is that students are writing these notes down, and then when we get to the discussion, they're referring to moments that occurred 30 minutes ago. And they don't necessarily, other students don't feel like it's necessarily relevant or as poignant when there's been so much time and there's so much distance between the comment and when the behavior first occurred. GoSoapbox.com allows me to have students write to each other, commenting, engaging in discussion about what they're watching as they watch it. It's sort of like live tweeting an event, or when CNN conducts a live poll during presidential debates where viewers indicate their immediate reaction to answers as they are given. As you can see here, students are able to make comments or questions and then even like a comment or question by another student, indicating to me how much I should prioritize it in our post-demonstration discussion. On the screen, I'm circling an example of how 12 different students hit the sort of like or thumbs up button to demonstrate that they wanted me to discuss that particular concept in class. GoSoapbox.com also allows students to respond to each other's questions, so they don't even have to wait to the large group discussion at the end of the demonstration. If there's a question that a student feels they know the answer, they can type that response, and then I know that issue has already been resolved during the demonstration. So GoSoapbox.com is yet another example of how you can engage students using technology that reinforces peer-to-peer learning and higher engagement. So how are we going to make this happen? How can you make this happen? Let's go back to our poll everywhere and explore how we can make this happen by first asking, what do you think is your biggest barrier to using technology in the classroom? Go ahead and pull out those cell phones again, and you can respond with the letters here to indicate what you see as your biggest barrier to using technology in the classroom. Is it insufficient resources, scarcity of time, potential for failure, inadequate skills, or is it the organizational culture? Looks like we're getting a good number of responses as they come in, but the one that comes up the most is scarcity of time, insufficient resources. Oh, and now in it, I love this. I love when it's live and you can see what's happening as it changes. So actually, what I would say is it looks like there's a number of different reasons why people feel like there's a barrier to using technology in the classroom. Scarcity of time, insufficient resources, fear, the skills, and the organizational culture. Well, so let's explore a little bit more about how we can overcome those barriers. So we all have had to use technology at various points. We have felt that barrier. There's been a fear. What strategies have you used to overcome those barriers? And for this poll, you can type in a phrase or a one-word answer. All right, so we have reaching out to supportive colleagues, asking for help, finding more comfort, asking the school to dedicate more resources, going to IT. I love that a lot of folks are saying work with others. Practice, try it out, practice. Learning of reaching out to find more information, devoting more times ourselves, taking advantage of free training on the undergrad campus, taking baby steps. This is just fantastic. There are tons of strategies that we can use to overcome our barriers. If we see only those barriers, it does become very difficult. But there are a lot of ways that we can overcome those barriers. And a big one is collaborating, reaching out to the resources that we have. When you hear a little bit about that support from those on this webinar who are saying, yep, you can reach out to others, take training from sources on the undergrad campus or maybe in your own IT department, what do you think about when you think about integrating technology in the classroom again? Does it feel a little less scary? And our responses are starting to come in. We're having a lot of, all right, so word cloud, so exciting is one that's coming in a lot. It's possible, it's intriguing, it's promising. These seem a little bit more positive than where we started out at the beginning of the webinar. That it is possible, but that, there are still some things that can happen. You need a backup. What if things malfunction? Absolutely. We've had a few things happen in the webinar. We hope you see that when they happen, you can take a moment to see how you can fix it. But this word exciting still seems to be our biggest word. Yay! Because it can be exciting. It can be exciting. Let's talk a little bit, see if I can get back to it. Let's talk a little bit about how we can make that happen. First of all, as many people talked about, we can't be afraid of failure. Things can happen, but we can get over them. We can reach out to colleagues. We can have support. We can ask our students sometimes for that support as well. So we want to overcome those barriers by recognizing that failure, it can be okay, not to be afraid of it. Technology fluency is a necessary and marketable skill, but we can just focus on some of the small shifts. We don't have to build an entire new flipped classroom or purchase new online classroom tools. Colleagues at Michigan State are doing some amazing things with their reInvent Law Lab, and many of you know about folks at Suffolk who've created the Legal Tech and Innovation Concentration. These are all really cool initiatives to teach students specific skills in technology and legal practice. But you don't have to go that far, or dare I say, that's not even really our point. Our point is the technology fluency, being able to adapt to learn technology as it comes out, not mastering any one technology. The point is to introduce new tech in the classroom in ways that are pedagogically sound and flex and strengthen that student's tech fluency muscle. Use what's out there and available to enhance what you're already doing to do it better. All the technology that we've shown here today is free. Poll Everywhere that we've been using, where you're able to use polling technology to get text responses, to get word clouds, and even to have graphs and bars that give us quantifiable information. Let's see if I can get to one here. Here we go. Poll Everywhere is free, so you don't even have to bring in clicker technology. Poll Everywhere is free for up to 40 users. There is then a minimal fee if you want to pull more than 40 at any one point. But all the other technology that we have used today is free. GoSoapbox.com, Google, even the websites. SlideBean that we're using for the presentation today. This is all free technology, so we don't even have to rely on our law school's budget to enhance what we're already doing.
Okay. So some takeaways going forward here. How to actually make it happen. Okay, so as we've talked about, the most important thing is to focus on your learning outcomes and let them drive your design and your integration of technology. What should students be able to do as a result of this assignment? Ask how and if the application of technology can actually enhance the outcomes and increase engagement. Reach out to others in your community who can guide and support you. A lot of folks brought that up as a strategy in the previous example, which is great.
And I'm going to interrupt here, Kara. Kara is a librarian in our at our school, and this was one that I didn't necessarily see, but to reach out to our librarians. They're really information specialists, technology specialists. They can show you some tools, and Kara has been instrumental in my ability to integrate technology in the classroom.
Thank you. Yes, definitely don't forget about your librarians. They often have a great range of skill sets that they can offer you, and they love to help people find information, so they're definitely a great resource. Okay, now remember that you are a model for students of this process. As instructors, we are. So modeling a willingness to try and fail and try again from a more informed perspective is a really good thing. And a lot of, actually, as I noticed, not a lot of people were afraid of failure, and I think that's a great thing. I know I am, but I think remembering my strategies for dealing with that fear can really help me overcome that and focus on the exciting things about using technology. Okay, so if you're curious, we've already mentioned a few kinds of technology, but again, SlideBean is what we use for this presentation. It's really easy to put something together, and we recommend it. Another one was the Go Soapbox to get student feedback, and then Google Apps are really easy to use. So if you want to get started with something that a lot of students may have already had experience with, or if you use Google Apps for your institution, then you already have this functionality sort of built in, so that's something to explore. And also you might want to try some of the other examples of Prezi, Twitter, and Storify that we showed in the presentation as examples of student use and work. And now we welcome you to ask us questions through the chat box. We did have a question come in asking about some of these technology tools. I think when we mentioned that they were free, that it's free, but what data mining do their licenses require? Ubiquitous tracking, cookies?
So one of the things, it's a great question, and I think that you do want to consider, and especially when using the free services, what type of information you're trying to capture, or what you're using it for. The types of things that I'm using it for are not confidential. I'm not using them for cases. I'm using them in simulation classes to engage students in material. And so I'm not as concerned about privacy or what type of information might be retained on the site. But that is something that you want to consider when choosing a technology.
Okay. And somebody asked, what is the advantage of SlideBean over PowerPoint? I would just say it is personal preference. I like SlideBean because I'll use the example of putting together this presentation where Alyson and I were able to remotely work on the presentation collaboratively, and we didn't have to send different versions of PowerPoint files back and forth to each other. And with those images in there, they would have been huge and broken our email inboxes. Another advantage is the ability, the integration of many different tools into SlideBean. So you can quickly add images by doing
Should I
an
show
image
that?
search. Sure, right in there. There is sort of a template built right into it, so you only have certain options that you can choose from, which is kind of nice if you're not really into designing PowerPoints from scratch.
So I'll actually just show you. I'm adding a new slide. I just hit plus. And let's say that we wanted to have a conversation about architecture. I could just type in architecture here into the search box. It's actually looking on Flickr, which is a source for copyright-free images. And so I know that I can use any of these images without any concern of copyright. If I find something that I like, that's fascinating. I just add it. And it's slowly adding.
Yeah. So one of the things with these tools, especially these free tools, these newer tools, they're not as established as PowerPoint. They can sometimes be a little buggy, but again, that's part of the lesson for students when they go out into the workplace. They're going to be having to adapt to different kinds of technology. Sometimes it's buggy as they get developed, and that's okay. And another advantage I think over PowerPoint is the visual display and the sort of next generation feel of it is something that's not easy to replicate in just PowerPoint.
Let's see if it shows up. Well, doesn't seem like it is. There's supposed to be our picture.
Yeah.
But the reason why we liked it is because it's just really easy to add information, such as pie charts. It does the design for you, so it's just a really easy tool to use. Let's see if I can do one more while we go to 50. Here's my, look, it's just creating that pie chart for me.
On the fly, yep.
On the fly with these values.
No Excel knowledge required.
Right.
Great question. So another question that came in was, do we make suggestions to the students about technology tools they can use for projects, or do the students just know them? And I think I want to take a minute just to say that we often think students are more tech savvy than they are, and they're not. Yes, they live in a digital world. Yes, they've grown up having technology, but it doesn't mean that they're always aware of everything that's out there when it comes to doing professional or academic work. And so that's really where those folks, your librarians, your IT folks, your colleagues who are really into this stuff can help guide you. And I would go into Alyson's class and present students with a range of tools that I think might be appropriate, but again, I always emphasize it's not about mastering these tools. I don't want them to use any one of these particular tools. I encourage them to start here and sort of take it from there and to explore what else is out there that works for them.
Yeah, and when I give them a project, I give them the learning outcome. I tell them what I need to see from their project, but I do not dictate the technology that they need to use. And the reason why I do that is because I want them to try new things. If I say anything about the technology, I say, one, that the format needs to fit whatever audience that they have that's assigned to them or that they've chosen. And two, that I will reward them trying new things. Because again, I'm not trying to get them to master any particular technology, but I'm hoping that they can flex that technology fluency muscle of being able to adapt and learn new technology. Kara has really convinced me that it's not about making sure the students graduate with a mastery of PowerPoint or a mastery of one particular technology, but that they feel comfortable when faced with a new technology that they can figure out how to learn it. They know who to go to ask for that support. They know how to collaborate with others using that technology so that they're less afraid and willing to dive right in.
Okay, so we have a lot more questions coming in. Questions about the assessment slide. Yes, I will send out that assessment rubric to everyone so you can see it more closely. Any thoughts on digital classrooms like Adobe Connect, and whether tools should be different for the virtual environment. Well, Adobe Connect is, I don't have too much experience using it. My understanding of it is that it's sort of similar to GoToWebinar, where it allows you to, or GoToMeeting, where you sort of are having this virtual discussion. And I don't know if with a virtual environment, I guess I'm not quite sure what that might mean. I think that we are working in this environment that's hybrid no matter what we're doing. So even if we're in a face-to-face class, it doesn't mean that we're not using virtual tools, and sort of vice versa. Even if you're in a virtual class, you might still be using some other regular classroom type of tools.
Yeah, I think that when we look at virtual classrooms versus traditional classrooms, we need to figure out how we can better bring technology in the classroom and then bring those face-to-face experiences to the virtual classroom. And technology is the way we can do both of those. When we talk about using more technology, the easy go-to is the online classroom and switching things to that virtual environment. But whether you're in virtual or in a traditional, there needs to be some type of engagement. Poll Everywhere can be used in both of these. Go Soapbox can be used in both of these. Google Forms can be used in both of these. So using technology to increase the engagement with the students, whether it's an online or traditional, I think is helpful.
Yeah, and if you can show it on your screen, then you can broadcast it in a virtual environment. Okay, so we have another question. Does Poll Everywhere keep phone number and responses you text?
I believe, so I always set it up so that it does not collect that information. I just try to keep the results. But I believe there is a way that you could ask for it, but it will say that you're collecting that information.
Yes.
Same thing with GoSoapbox.com. You can set it up so that you know who is submitting that response or that question. But I set it up so that it was all anonymous because I wasn't trying to figure out who was doing what. I was just trying to make sure that I captured their thoughts in the moment.
Okay, another Poll Everywhere question. So a participant uses it in a large 100 plus class, but has to switch awkwardly between Poll Everywhere and PowerPoint so that you can see both the question and poll results. Yeah, and there is an option to embed the poll, but it sometimes can be clunky with Poll Everywhere. Is there a better polling software that can be integrated into PowerPoint more seamlessly?
I don't know of one, but what I'll share with you, what I've done, I have a Macintosh, and so we're right now looking at my full screen of the presentation. This would just be the same if it were PowerPoint. And then I have it set up so that I do a 3-finger swipe to a whole nother screen. So these are both open at the same time. So that instead of trying to embed Poll Everywhere into the PowerPoint or embed it into our slide beam presentation, I have it as a separate screen that I'm able to go to. That might be a workaround for you.
Yeah, it's really difficult to get PowerPoint to play nice with a lot of other programs. I think we're going to see a lot more development in this area in terms of software for classroom use. There are some cloud-based programs like SlideBeam for presentations. Actually, this is an area that seems to be exploding. There seem to be more and more online presentation tools like SlideBeam every day that allow you to integrate those types of technologies. So you can embed iframes, so codes from other programs that might work. But I don't have a strong alternative that I can think of at this time. You're right, it's frustrating.
Which I think is, I mean, you've brought up, Kara, that there's going to be shifts, but this is one of the reasons why I've been trying to explore other presentation software that's just easier to engage with other platforms, and besides relying on PowerPoint.
Exactly. Okay, so yes, there are some questions about copies of the presentation, the webinar. We are recording this session. We'll be able to share that, and we will also send out the link to the presentation. Another question that came in was, how can you avoid students being overwhelmed with switching among multiple different tools? I've heard this complaint from students. Have you heard that from students?
So one of the things that I do is I tell students we're regularly going to be engaging and using technology in the classroom. but that when we are not, I ask them to put away their technology. So sort of like I present moments for them to scratch that itch by opening up the laptop or pulling out the phone, and then I ask them to put it away. And I'm trying to demonstrate that we are appropriately engaging with technology at very specific and intentional moments. This webinar, we were trying to demonstrate a number of different technologies. In a classroom, I will usually have only one thing that I am doing in that class. So if it's a live demonstration or a video that we're watching, that's going on. They're using GoSoapbox.com. I'm not also then having them go straight to Google and do a self-reflection and use poll everywhere.
Right. And to some extent, I might say, well, this is sort of the world that you're entering as professionals, where you're going to have to task switch and maybe technology switch more often than you might think. So it's kind of good practice for that. But yeah, I agree that if you can possibly sort of limit it, and as long as the technology is working okay, if it starts not working for you, that's where students are going to kind of push back and feel frustrated. But to the extent that it is generally working okay and everyone's rolling with it, just try to focus on the couple of important technologies that are going to help you achieve the learning outcome.
And I'll just reiterate what Kara said, letting the students know you're trying something new and that you're encouraging them to try something new tends to get them on board and supportive of you instead of frustrated with you trying something.
Right, definitely. So someone had I think a suggestion of turning technologies for maybe the polling software, and that would be an option. I still haven't really found that to be, at least in my use of it, to be a really satisfactory integration with PowerPoint either, although that might be something worth exploring, but it does cost money. Some universities have licenses, so you should check and see what polling software may be supported by your institution.
So there's Poll Everywhere and there's Turning Technologies. Those are two separate polling softwares, clicker technologies, but neither one may necessarily integrate well with PowerPoint, given the concerns.
Yes. Another question, what does the research show about tools like Go to Soapbox, which put students in Go Soapbox? I always say Go to Soapbox, which put students in texting, emailing mode during classmates' presentations. I would think that would distract them from listening to the actual presentation.
I cannot point to specific research that has looked at that issue. I can only tell you anecdotally that the students, first of all, the students who had their laptops open to use Go Soapbox were actually engaged with the demonstration more fully than if they just had their laptops open to take notes. So I found it far less distracting. The students that were in the demonstration knew that the students observing were interested in what was happening as opposed to G-chatting or doing something else and not paying attention, so that their time was seen as valuable. So I got a positive response, and I continue to get a positive response when I have used this. But it does mean that I tell the people that are going to be in the live demonstration that we're doing this. So if they hear clicking of keys, that they know it's on purpose, it's in response to things that are happening. And two, I tell the students who are observing that I will be walking around the room and I expect that they're only on GoSoapbox.com.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's easy to assume or necessary to assume that using technology is more distracting than taking notes in front of a speaker. In terms of that, I don't want to automatically assume that the technology itself would be distracting. It's sort of a new way of engaging with what's going on that hasn't been available to us in other analog formats. So I think we do need to explore it and see if it continues to work or if it is distracting, and that might depend on your students, your class, your simulation as well. All right, so we got
another question that has come up from others is this question about, okay, you do this in a simulation class, but how do I use this in a doctrinal class? And so I want to make sure that I do share that, one, we wanted to present this information based on our experience and the way that I've been using it so that it is not disingenuous. This is what has worked for me in simulation-based classes. But we do have colleagues who are actively using Poll Everywhere, and it sounds like there are some on the call who are using Poll Everywhere in their classrooms that are not necessarily simulation classes. So we have at least 2 or 3 doctrinal tenure track professors who use Poll Everywhere in their class discussions to gauge understanding. And we even have a professor who uses Poll Everywhere to conduct midterms. Yeah. I also see this being used in a traditional clinic where you're in your classroom component, where you might be running simulations or you might be doing case rounds but want to have some anonymous thoughts about a topic that came up that might be safe for people to share their thinking through something like Poll Everywhere or even the Google form Quick Write, that without having to share their thoughts on something that might be somewhat controversial in a small group setting, you're able to still give them a chance to express those thoughts through Poll Everywhere or through Google Forms.
Yeah, and I think it really depends on your comfort with technology and the potential distraction of technology. There are some professors who might use Twitter to set up a back channel, and that is something that they kind of check in with, and that might work for you, it might not work for you, but it's a way that you can sort of engage students on a different dimension and maybe hear from folks who wouldn't necessarily pipe up, or maybe, they need a participation credit or whatever, and this is a way that they can participate. Just had a comment come in that Top Hat is another polling technology. Yes, I have heard of that, but I've never used it. It integrates with PowerPoint. It can also take attendance. It's free for one class under 30, possibly. So Top Hat, like TOP hat, is something that you might want to also check out. Thank you. Does anybody else have any other recommendations for polling technologies that they've used? You can feel free to.
Or other platforms that integrate technology in the classroom. You can share that, and we're welcome to, or we will verbalize those for the group.
Okay. Or any other questions at this point?
All right, it looks like we are running out of time. And so we wanted to thank you for joining us, for sharing your thoughts, asking your questions, and allowing us to share a little bit about how we're integrating technology in the classroom. Again, not as a way to master any one type of technology, but as a way to flex that technology fluency muscle in students so they are best prepared to adapt as technology changes in the future, how it is impacting the legal practice, and as educators, allows us to better engage our students and help them reach the highest order of learning through creation using technology. If you have any questions after this webinar, we do encourage you to feel free to email us at acarrel@law.northwestern.edu or kara.young@law.northwestern.edu. Again, we have recorded this webinar. We will share that with you, as well as a copy of the slides. Thank you very much.
Thank you.